Burl Williams, a Korean War veteran from Albertville, recently shared his story of survival on the frozen battlefield of the Chosin Reservoir. Williams was one of the few soldiers who lived to tell the story of the Chosin Few.
There's two things that I want this interview to let the people of America know. The first is that I thank the Lord Jesus Christ from the depth of my heart. Had it not been for Him watching over me, I couldn't have got to come home. And the other thing that I want the American people to know, and I want this interview to tell them, that this is not about me. But I want the American people to know all of this on behalf of the 36,000 American boys that was killed in that war. This has always been spoke of as the forgotten war. I don't want the American people to forget that war, and especially those that don't have a voice in it anymore. I know all of us was afraid that we wasn't going to get out. At night we almost froze to death, and then in the daytime when the weather was clear enough, our planes would come by and strafe and drop napalm bombs on the Chinese. And a lot of times they'd be laid out in a field that had snow covered, and they'd lay under a white sheet. And I remember seeing them as they'd drop some of that napalm, getting up and running and screaming and blazing. They'd just be blazing on fire. And there were so many things during that time to make you be so stressed out. I was 17 years old. And I got to the point where several times I thought I wasn't going to make it out, because I've had several to tell me since then that the odds were so much against the fact that you could drive a Jeep all the way in there and all the way out and not get killed. And I knew that, but I promised the Lord, I said, Lord, if you'll just bless me to get through this and get to come back home, that I'll join the church. A couple of days later, there's a C-119 come flying in over that Fusion Pass where it had been blown out. And they dropped a bridge, and the engineers were able to span that void that was left by that explosion. It was narrow enough for a Jeep to catch the inside part of the bridge, and it was wide enough for the outside part of the bridge to carry a tank across it. With a lot of brave men's effort and God's help, we were finally blessed to cross that bridge and make our way back to Hungnam. When when arriving there at Hung Nam, I hadn't shaved or took a bath for over 2 weeks. Hadn't changed clothes. And I drove that little Jeep up there, and it was riddled with bullet holes all across the back and the sides. Some of the bullets hit the back of the seat that I was sitting in, but they didn't penetrate it. Me and that little Jeep made it back down there with God's watch care. When we got ready to leave Hagaroo, my company commander got inside of a tank. And he come out of there in that tank. And I didn't see him anymore until we all got back to Hung Nam. I'm sure he was surprised to see me when he got there. But I made it. And we loaded on ships and the LSTs, and as we was leaving the port of Hung Nam, I saw this great explosion, and that seaport was blown to bits and pieces by that explosion. And we made our way back to Pusan, unloaded, got new supplies, and got some new men for replacements of those that was killed and wounded and evacuated. And we started our way back north to encounter the Chinese.
Read more about Williams and the Chosin Few in an upcoming edition of The Reporter.